So I literally just said a whole bunch of stuff, and I hope I can remember what I said, but it was along the lines of, I was talking about the relationship between the Yoruba religion and Christianity. And when you compare the two of them, if you're looking from like a Christianese standpoint, right, you wouldn't see anything. You're like, oh yeah, it's demonic, all of that, all of that. Not to say it isn't, but but we can sort of compare and contrast, and we can sort of see what the differences are and what makes the Christian faith superior, in my opinion, to the African religion. And I'll start with, you know, so the concept of the Yoruba religion here, it is that the whole idea of the Yoruba religion is that Olodumare, there's a being. We know of a being. We know that this world is not just run by men. We know that there's a being. We know that there's a creator. The universe bears witness of a creator. So there's Olodumare that is transcendent. Probably lives somewhere above the skies, far, far, far above the skies. And obviously, if you know the creation story according to the Yoruba religion, you sort of get the idea of Olodumare, and he sends messengers and they create the world. So in the Yoruba religion, Olodumare didn't even necessarily create the world by his hands. He sends messengers to create the world, and that has something to it. That has something to it. And so we see a people that they understand that there's someone behind the curtains of this world, someone that's pulling the plugs. But this being is very distant. This being is very transcendent. He's very holy. And who are we, mere mortals? We are so impure, we're so dirty, we're just so fallible. Who are we to have direct communion with this God? Like, it doesn't want to have anything to do with us. It definitely doesn't want to have anything to do with us. And so what do? We know that this world needs Olodumare. We know that we need the input of Olodumare. We know that we're not all powerful. We know that we need the help of the supernatural. We know that that is a giving. And so what do? Then we come up with deities, right? I don't know how the deities came about, but let's just see. And then we come up with deities. And if you know the story of some of these deities, that's the Yemoja, Ifa, Shango, Ogun. Why are they skipping my mind? And so we have some of these guys. If you know their story, you know that they were once men, and they were sort of elevated to the position of deities, right? I think, is it Ogun or Shango that married? Yeah, it's Shango that is the one that married Oya, and then Oya vexed and she became a river, right? So we understand that these people were once humans, but after their death, they were sort of immortalized and they were elevated to the position of gods. Probably because of the way they live their lives, or maybe because the people thought that these people have something that we don't have. These people have special things that we don't have, right? And so because of these special capabilities that these people have, we sort of elevate them to the position of orishas. I don't want to say gods or idols, because according to the Yoruba culture, they're not necessarily gods. They're just orishas, and they're just mostly intermediaries. But they're not gods like the Greek gods, right? And so we sort of elevate these people. They become orishas, and they become our intermediaries. They become the intermediary between us and Olodumare. We think they're better than us. We think that they have earned that position. We think that they are purer than us, and they can quite approach the transcendence of Olodumare, right? And we cannot. And so they become our mediators. And because we understand that they are not omnipotent, we understand that they are not omnipresent, we understand that they are quite finite in their capabilities, even though their capabilities are seemingly more than our capabilities. We understand their finiteness, whatever. So we don't have just one, we have multiple of them for different reasons. And so you see, you have Ogun for war, when you're a warrior, Ogun, or metals. yeah, whatever. You see, we have Shango for what's Shango? Lightning, light. I don't know. You see, we have Oshun for fruitfulness and childbearing. You see, we have Oya for water, whatever that implies. You see, we have Ajay for wealth. We have Ishu for disease or something. We have Shopono for healing, and all of that. So we understand that these guys, they are quite finite, and so we assign tasks to all of them. So they're not necessary, they're not all encompassing, but when we bring all of them together, they can sort of solve our problems, right? They can meet our needs all together. One meets one need, one meets another need. So we don't bother them too much. We don't, yeah. And so we now have come from this idea that these guys are intermediaries between God. But what Christianity comes and says is that I understand these guys, yes, they sort of give you a glimpse of Olodumare, right? They sort of give you an expression of who Olodumare, what Olodumare might be, what the capabilities of Olodumare might be, because ultimately their power comes from Olodumare, right? But Christianity comes and says Olodumare has not remained distant, and you don't necessarily need these intermediaries because Olodumare has stepped down into earth to commune with you. And this, I feel like this is good. This would have been a very huge struggle. Would have been a struggle in the minds of the average Yoruba person at the time. Because what do you mean this Olodumare that is transcendent? Like he didn't even he because he's so transcendent, he didn't even create the world by himself. It was a subject that he sent to create the world. What do you mean that he's me? Ain't no way. That's not possible, right? And what Christianity does is that there's this concept, right, in Hebrews, is that in diverse times God has revealed himself through the prophet, and now he has revealed himself through the Son. And we can sort of see a parallel, which is that yes, the Orishas, they did what they needed to do at the time. The people didn't know better. But now we have a more excellent way, which is that Olodumare has chosen to reveal himself through the Son, who is Christ, who is God, right? He has chosen to reveal. So he has not remained distant. He has not remained just Olodumare. He has not remained just transcendent, right? He has come down to our level, and he has become our leader. No worry, the Yorubas always believe that they always believe in the concept of a leader. But what do you mean that the God that created the universe is your leader? He created your mind. What do you mean that he's the Olumoro Okon? He knows your heart. So because the Yorubas generally consider themselves, too impure for this purest form of light, too fallible for the one who is infallible, too imperfect, too dirty for the one who is holy, right? How can these things be? There's no way I can approach Olodumare without dying, but Olodumare has come. And he has approached you first. And so he has said there's no need for all of these gods because they are very finite. Come to the real thing. Come to the substance. I am the substance. And I have not remained distant. I have come to live with you. I have come to tabernacle with you. When John says that the word became flesh and lived amongst men, Olodumare has come to live amongst men. And when you see the concept of tabernacle and the concept of creation, is that God has always remained in creation. And so it now sort of changes the ideology that God, when you see the story of the Bible, story of creation, God had not always remained distant from creation. God had always been in creation. When God created the world, he put his spirit in man. He breathed his spirit in man. On the seventh day, when he rested on creation. That's what he did. He rested on creation. And we see throughout the Old Testament, we see God resting on people, right? We see, when the Spirit of God rests on, when, so for example, the 70 guys, is it in Numbers, the 70 guys that were prophesying, we see that the Spirit of God rests on them. When, is it Gideon, the Spirit of God rests on them. We see the Spirit of God, the judges, right, when they wanted to do whatever they wanted to do, we see the Spirit of God resting. And so this sort of brings a contrasting idea that Olodumare has not remained distant from his creation. Olodumare has not remained far off. He has come down. He has come near to us. And so we need to do away. We need to do away with these gods because they are not quite Olodumare. They cannot do what Olodumare can do. We now have the real thing. We now have the real substance. Olodumare, the gods, right, we sort of elevated them to here, right, and then we now see Olodumare that's up there. He comes down to our level, and what he does, he doesn't just go up when he comes down. He doesn't just return in his resurrection, in his ascension rather. Now he has taken us with him, not literally, to sit with him at the right hand of the Father, far above principalities and power. So at the end of the day, in Christ, we are very much superior to these orishas. That's what I'm trying to say. Not even just in Christ. In creation, the original state of creation, we have always been superior to these orishas. We just didn't know, right? But now he's revealing it to us. We are very much superior to these orishas, and us continuing to worship them we are shortchanging ourselves. It is us cheating ourselves, because what do you mean I'm superior to you, right? They didn't have Christ. What do you mean that I'm worshiping something that I'm superior to? The same goes for people that worship animals. You are superior to these animals. What do you mean? You have dominion, don't you? God gave you dominion over the animals. People that worship trees, God gave you dominion over the trees, and it says that they shall be for food and medicine, right? So why do you worship them? And that's literally you shortchanging yourself. That's literally demoting yourself, because it's just like you have already been placed above them. You have already been placed to be seated far above principalities and power. It's not even going to the ascension and to the realities in Christ. That's far-fetched. Let's go back to creation. And so creation is like God creates man. So there's a contrast, right? You see this contrast of, in Yoruba culture, God, he doesn't do dirty things. So he sends his messengers, Oromila and whoever the guys are, I don't remember their name, they come down to earth. But we see a God in Genesis. We see in the beginning God created. We see God creating by his own self. We see him creating man by his own hands, right? And so when I don't know what to say again. We see him creating man by his own hands, and he says that man should have dominion, and so God gives man dominion over all of the creation, all of the created beings. So in creation, in originality, we are superior to these beings that we worship. And so when we now come into Christ, us continuing to worship them is a slap in the face. It is, imagine, and so now we're not seeing people saying, oh, we should go back to our ancestral religion, we should go back to worship Umoja, go back to West Africa. You don't understand. What is really happening is that you're shortchanging yourself. Is that you're choosing to remain below things that you have dominion over. I need a drum roll.